Good evening, Wakefield. Welcome to the Town Council meeting for December 10th, 2018. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Sherry, do we have any public participation?
No.
None.
None.
Okay. Thank you. So go right to 3, the presentation action items, intermunicipal agreement, director of assessment agreement. Mr. Town Council? Or Mr. Town Administrator?
Whichever one you prefer.
You both look good.
Okay. This is really a renewal of our agreement with Reading. As the public may be aware, we do share the Director of Assessments with the town of Reading. We have since 2012. This has been a really spectacular collaboration with another community. Since 2012, I think we've received excellent service, reduced costs, and I was going back through this, over the last 8 years of this budget going forward, and our average increases in this budget has averaged out to about 1.7%, which is pretty good in this day and times. We also split all of the benefit costs, so it really is a great help to us that you can see the presentations that we get from our Director of Assessments and the work he has done. I will tell you that the Reading Select Board has approved this at their meeting last week, and we would recommend favorable action as well. Town Council has reviewed it as well.
Excellent.
Town Council.
Town Council.
I move that we accept the Director of Assessment agreement under the intermunicipal agreement between our town and Reading.
Second.
All in favor? What discussions first? Any comments or discussions? Or? No. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none? Thank you.
Thank you.
And bond?
The board, the town council may remember Article 11 at a November town meeting talked about a bonding for inflow infiltration through the Mass Water Resource Authority. And the town meeting passed this unanimously, and this consists of a grant portion that is 75%, or about $960,000. The rest of it, about $320,000, is a loan from the MWRA, which we pay over 10 years at no interest. So the Director of Public Works, Mr. Stinson, tells me that he does get a better rate than I do on our bonds, and I guess he does. 0 is better than we're getting, so this really helps us do a lot of the work and remove water from going into the sewer system and what have you, which we pay on. So we would recommend favorable action, and you're really just carrying out what town meeting said.
Could I have a motion for the bond, MWRA sewer bond?
I move that we approve the MWRA sewer bond.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none? Thank you. And Steve, the fiscal year 2020?
Great. This is our first, or my first run through, kind of the state of where I think we're going in 2020, fiscal year 2020, which will start in July. And it always amazes me as I go and put these numbers together with Kevin, how little I really know what's going to happen next year, because we are at somewhat of the, we have state aid that we don't know about. We don't know about new growth. We don't know about a lot of things, but over the last 10 years, I think we've done a good job of figuring out what we think is going to happen, and I think we've had a very good run on this. So let me just kind of go through where I think we are right now and how we meld in our budget priorities. So I always like to start about what we do know. We do know that we have $3 million in stabilization. And these are all after November town meeting. We do know that we have $6 million in free cash. We do know that we have a reserve fund, which we go through our finance committee, that has not been touched yet. We have $300,000 in that. We do know that we have $14 million in OPEB, which is a great story. And we do know that we have $1.6 million in water and sewer reserve. That number may be a little bit lower than we'd like it, but it's kind of consistent where we've been over the years. So if we have any breaks or what have you, we would use that reserve to pay for it. So all in all, having about $24 million in reserve is not a bad thing. We also have $500,000 in sped stabilization that we added, so that's a helpful too. So I've been talking with a lot of you and a lot of the public about budget priorities and what we'd like to see us do over the next years to come. Public safety is always a huge priority. That's one of the most important things we do is keep the public safe. The downtown project, we started phase 1 on that. We hope to have a 25% plan design to go forward, hopefully get more grants, and I know that's very exciting. In that, I run in roads, sidewalks, our normal maintenance. You'll note that we did add more money to that last year, and we actually have, I think we've seen a lot of the fruition, a lot of roads that have been done. And streetscapes, people have mentioned streetscapes to me and public trees and what have you, and I think this is all part of where we're going with the Complete Streets programs and what have you, and really all melds into that whole study we're doing in the downtown. Drainage, I think at least one board member mentions drainage fairly frequently, Mr. Donaco. Capital improvements, we do have a public safety building that we will be looking at again. We have a DPW garage that is out there. We do have some field work to do that we talked about last week as well. I do not have the high school on there, but I think that is all on our minds as well. Website and communication upgrades, recreation activities for all ages. This is where our pickleball and splash gardens and other things may come in. Sustainability and economic development, and I put those together because I don't think that they're separate. I think we have to look at sustainability in everything we do, and we also need to look at economic development, and there's a lot of interest out there, and there's a lot of ways that we can, I think, move forward as a community and be better to the environment and also improve ourselves economically, so we'll be looking at that as well. In fact, I went out in my little group today. Councilor Smith Galvin asked about doing solar on the roofs or looking at it when we look at the Greenwood School. And I've been inundated just since 4 o'clock today with suggestions, so it's really interesting and exciting there. Social awareness, I think that we have done some great work here over the last decade. We certainly need to do more, and we're talking about doing more partnerships with some of our providers out there for substance abuse and things like that. We also have taken quite a look at what the Human Rights Commission, what we're doing there, and that's part of our budget as well. Tax relief, being cognizant of what we're doing there. And Lake Quannapowitt, we will be going from kind of a study phase to hopefully an implementation phase over the next year or so to seeing what we can do to, spruce that area up a little bit. So I'm very happy about these. If there's anything, we are going through the budget process now. This is very early. If there is anything particular, I've reached out, and please reach back to me, let me know, because this is the time to try to get things into the budgets as we move forward. So where are we? We're well within our policies, and I think it's important for the public to know that. We have some reserve policies to make sure that we stay solvent. Free cash, we'd like to have that to be 8% of our operating revenue. We're there. We are there. Stabilization, 3% of our operating revenue. We are there, maybe a little bit higher. And our reserve fund, which is the Finance Committee fund, about 0.5% of our operating revenue. We're there now. So this is very important to me. It's very important to the financial markets that rate us. It's very important to, I'll use the word again, sustainability going forward, that we do maintain these levels. I really try to hit that balance with the council between having adequate reserves and funding the items that people want and deserve. So, as I said, I really know very little going into next year's budget, but let's talk about the revenue side first. I do know that tax levy will be around $73 million. That's pretty easy to figure out. I can take this year's tax levy and multiply that by 2.5%, and I can figure out where we can go. If you drop down to SBA, which is the School Business Association, this is the amount of money they're paying on the loans that we have out with them right now for the, not for the Galvin. The Galvin was done differently. They pay that all up front, but this is for the Woodville and the Dolbear. And those are actually going to go away, and the bills will go away pretty soon, but that's where the money came in there. So those are really the two items that I do know. Okay? Going forward, let's talk about state aid. This year's revenue has been coming in okay. A little bit, I look at it every month, and when, sometimes people hear the news and they tell me this went on, and I tend to panic, and I go and try to find everything. But state aid, I'm looking at it going up a little bit from last year, between 3 and 4%. This is your Chapter 70 aid and your unrestricted local aid. We had our state reps in here, so our state delegation in here a little while ago, and they all talked about how they're really looking to increase Chapter 70, and I think the money was $2 million a year more for Wakefield. Wouldn't that be wonderful? I don't think that's gonna happen right away. If they were half right, I'd be thrilled. A quarter right, I'd be thrilled. But I'm going with what I think is gonna happen there. Local receipts is one area that, to me, is very much dependent upon the economy. Local receipts are some local taxes that we get, and/or fees, building department fees for new construction. We can have some very big banner years on those. I don't, and Kevin Gill, our town accountant, we do not count on those banner years when we look at those numbers. We really look at a smoothing on that. Another big thing, and the biggest part of that really, are excise taxes on automobiles. If people do not buy new cars, okay, if you notice on your own excise tax bill, if you don't buy, your excise tax goes down over time. So if people aren't buying cars in Wakefield, that's something that is very nebulous. About almost 5 million of that local receipts can be excise taxes. So that's something that we look at very carefully. And I'm confident with this because I tend to be a little bit conservative here. These numbers have been running much higher. We've been ratcheting them up every year a little bit, about 4% each year. I'm very comfortable with that. I'd much rather come to you and say, hey, we have a little bit of extra free cash at the end of the year, than saying, we're a little bit late, we're gonna have to pull out of our savings to cover that, if those comes in less. MGLD, I call it the payment in lieu of tax programs. That's going up a little about 1.5% over last year. It's $904,000. Starting off looking at using some free cash to balance the budget, I start doing it that way only because I don't want to bump those local receipts way up too high. So I kind of know where I am. I think we'll still be well in reserves because we're going to replenish free cash this year, and that's kind of the analysis that I do with our town accountant when we go forward. And the last item is new growth. New growth is new construction in town, and we've seen a lot of new construction going on in town. There's always a lag on the new growth hitting the tax rolls. That's just the way it is. You see a lot of construction going on, and then it's the year later. So I think we will see a lot more new growth next year. I'm very comfortable with $1 million there. It may be more, but that's been very consistent where we've been the last few years. So I think that we've done a good job on that in the past. And when I look at all of our revenues, I say, well, we're going to end up with about $96 million. So that's basically what it takes to run the town of Wakefield, $96 million. So if I start there, I got to say, all right, this is what we have for revenues. Where our budget's going to go? What's going to happen here? So let's take a look at there. Operating budgets. So operating budgets are about $65 million. Of that, about $41 million is the school department. The rest are all the other departments in town. I am looking at, in my own mind, going forward from last year, about 4% increase in operating budgets. I will tell you, I tell my department heads to balance, to budget for any contractual obligations, and then level fund everything else. And that's where we start, and then we build it in from there. But we do look at every line item, and this council will get every line item on every budget, as you know, if you've been through it before, and we can go through that. But that's where I think we could end up. Then we have what I call fixed costs. Big part of that is the insurance, the health insurance, which is really a little bit over half of that. That has been a really good success story over the last few years, and I'm in very close contact with what we think is going to happen with health insurance and working with the state through the GIC program. And I'm holding health insurance in my mind at about a 3% increase. I'm budgeting for about a 3% increase in those costs. I'm cautiously optimistic that that will be less than that, that the GAC will come in less than that. And we've also done a great job with our department there of moving people off of within that mix into the lower plans. Last year, we basically level funded health insurance. That could happen again, but I'm holding it in my mind so we're not surprised there. So that's part of the big part there. Articles, capital, we have a capital program of $2 million. That is pretty consistent with last year. I remember 10 years ago, our capital program was a tenth of that. It was about 200,000. So this is continuing on and continuing investing in ourselves and keeping all of those items up. One item in there may be, the Greenwood School roof. We talked about the Greenwood School roof last week. That, to me, should be a separate article, in my own opinion. That's something we'll be talking with the school committee about as we go forward there. The other articles, the biggest part of that is trash. Is a big part of that, but about half or so of that. I will tell you that the trash and recycling market is something that we're gonna have to look at very closely over the next few years. There was in every publication I'm reading on municipal government, particularly recycling, is a little bit tougher to get rid of because China is not buying the recycling that they were before. So that's something that we're gonna have to be looking at very, very closely. And the other item is debt service. And I think when you combine capital and debt service, I think we can be pretty proud as a community that we are investing a lot of money in ourselves and really a good portion of our budget. And debt service is paying for our existing loans and our existing buildings and what have you. And if no more items were to come on, a lot of things are falling off. Woodville's falling off, senior center's falling off, libraries off. So there is some money within our debt service as we go forward with some of these other projects. So it's pretty good. So I'm very happy with that there. Another couple of items that hit our balance sheet is overlay account. Now what overlay is money that we actually put aside because we say, or I should say that we anticipate maybe not collecting it. Because everyone doesn't always pay all of their taxes. We don't get 100%. And people file for abatements. They think that we're overtaxing them. Again, we just approved a intermunicipal agreement for our assessor. He's done a great job, and they've worked those out, so we have not used the overlay account every year, or we've only used a portion of it. But we do have to be ready in case that big commercial comes in and says, hey, we've been overtaxed, and they go to actually court and they actually win. We've done a great job in some of the telecommunications area, working with our friends and our neighbors and ratcheting that down. State and county assessments. So we get assessed by the state and county. About $500,000 of that is for the MBTA. Another big chunk of that is for charter schools. That's something that is right off our cherry sheet. I went up a little bit on that over last year. I think I'm feeling pretty confident in that area right there. And the last one is the second to last one is cherry sheet offsets. And really what that is that money that we get for the library. So it gets funded on one part, and I've got to credit on the one part, I've got to debit it on the other. And so that kind of shows up on the balance sheet there too. The last one is snow and ice overdraft. I am happy to report as of tonight, Ed, we are at 0 on that.
Good.
So I could have put all zeros there, but that's something that you never know. It is the one item that we can, or the one budget line item that we can overspend on, and we put it into the next fiscal year. We've had some very good years there. We've had some very bad years there. One thing that is in my budgets that we'll be presenting to you going forward is to continue to move up in a very methodical manner what we are actually budgeting for snow and ice removal. I think 10 years ago, we only budgeted $293,500, and it had been that way for 10 years. Crazy. We've budgeted that, ratcheted it up, that in my budget for next year, I think I have that at either 8 or 850. Trying to come to an 850 for next year at 800 now. Probably a good number to be there is $1 million.
Yeah.
So that's that. I tell you, I look at every publication. I look at the global markets. And so, interesting enough, our anticipated expenses are right 96. So right now we look pretty good. We look pretty balanced. So, but that's starting today. You can do a lot with numbers. So that we really don't have a shortfall or anything today, but things can happen. So here's some of the things that I'm uncertain about. I'm uncertain about state aid, but I think that it'll be around where we spoke about. Health insurance, I'm a little bit more optimistic about. School priorities are always something that we wrestle with here. Local receipts. Something that we don't know what's going to happen, although I'm under budgeting for what we have had coming in. Snow and ice that we talked about. Public safety building, what's gonna happen going forward there, and we'll probably be looking at that again in the spring or next fiscal year at some point. And I put federal policy at the end, because there's a lot that goes on in Washington DC, and you can see it happening right now. People hear the word tariff, and all of a sudden the stock market dives down, and that causes a lot of problems. People hear the word tariff, and steel prices go way up. That mean that everything that we're doing in any of our building programs is gonna cost more. Another unintended consequence is the recent tax cuts that went through, which were really good for, well, I guess were really good if you want to, for paying lower taxes. But part of how it's going to hit corporate America is that if corporations are paying less taxes, then low or no tax investments are have less incentive to them. So in talking to bond councils, it is possible that because municipal bonds, which you do not pay any taxes as an investor on a municipal bond, if you're not paying as much taxes on other items, the municipal bond gets less attractive, okay? So I think, at first I was saying, well, Jesus, rate's gonna go up on that. But I think now, because they aren't as attractive, I think the risk factor is gonna play more. And because we are AAA, we're still gonna be very competitive out there. But I thought that was an interesting twist in talking to bond counsel as, corporate America looks for their mixes, and I think they are gonna continue to look for AAA municipal bonds, which we are. So I think right now, we're in not too bad a shape. I'm pretty happy with where we are as for this part of the process. You'll see town accountant and I kind of walking around mumbling a lot over the next couple of months. So please come in and break that up. But I think that we're in good shape right now. We're certainly going to work hard and look at everything and to kind of give you something to think about over Christmas break. But please let me know about your priorities on that, because now is the time to move that in. Some of you have come to see me, which is great, but I want to make sure everyone gets in there. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Excellent. I think the overview looks very good. Some of the question marks you had during the summer seems like they've been ironed out, which is good. Some. Okay. Any questions or?
There's one big one for you. They do see the prelim look. This is very helpful. One area that I think you touched upon that is important for, I think, this body to keep looking at is the new growth piece. And I know you had mentioned that there is the lag. There's obviously a lot of construction that's going on currently that we hope will generate more tax revenue going forward. I think it's really important that we as a body think about how this new development and how this growth is translating into a benefit to the taxpayers. Because I hear time and time again, we have Brightview now, we have these new buildings going up now, but we still have these tax increases. And I know that this has been a discussion that we've raised previously, but we still haven't yet found, in my time here, a way to have this development boom translate into an economic benefit for the taxpayers, on an annual basis. And so I think the more we can, and I raised this when our tax assessor was here several meetings ago, the more we can think about ways that we can translate those development dollars, that additional tax revenue into some sort of discernible benefit to the taxpayers, I think we're in a better, position, because right now people are saying, all right, I see more buildings going up, I see more construction, but the bottom line is I'm still paying more in tax, and I think we have to better remedy that.
And I think the answer, or one of the answers anyway, that Victor gave when he was here is that the incentive needs to be on the commercial piece.
Right, exactly.
And we do have hopefully some big commercial items coming down the road, which will really help that. And the other part of it is that when you do have these mixed-use developments, we have to make sure, and I know Selectman Dinoco was mentioning this to me today in the office, you got to make sure that component, that commercial component is there, because that's what really helps. And it also, hopefully, that commercial component is a multiplier effect, creating jobs and creating vibrancy there, and maybe local option meals tax is coming in there or what have you. So, yeah, that's something that we have to be very careful about. And I think it dovetails into sustainability and economic development and all that we're trying to do there. But it's an excellent point.
I just think if we just think through that more, because commercial seems to be where the more bang for the buck is.
Absolutely.
And commercial is also a lesser of a drain on our resources generally, in terms
Generally it
of, businesses aren't putting people into the school system and the like. So I'd like to see us, go into the, in this incoming fiscal year, thinking about ways in which we can do a better job of that, because I think the people are expecting as such.
Absolutely.
Any other questions, points? Okay.
Doesn't require a vote, does it?
Nope.
It's just good conversation.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Steve.
you.
Okay, next
Oh,
up,
one item, Steve? Can I get a hard copy of that?
Sure.
Okay.
Do you want a hard one, or printed, or sent out?
Sent either or.
Either one.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah,
Email
I'll make that to everybody, sure.
email would be
Absolutely.
great, yeah, thanks, Steve. So number 4, license permits. These are for the 2019 retail liquor license renewals. These, there's no issues with all 6 as listed. And I don't know if anyone has any questions or comments on these.
Then I'll open it up for you.
Yeah, sure.
I'll make that motion to approve the 2019 retail liquor license renewals as stated 1 through 6.
Second.
Should we list the, just so people understand which parties are before us?
Sure, we could do that.
Chihao Corporation, Inc., Bamboo House, CMRG LLC, Tono Wakefield, Dockside Restaurant, JKS Restaurants, Bolinos, Massimo, Inc., Emera LLC is 4 Point Sheridan, Wakefield.
Any questions, comments? Okay. All in favor of the approval of license permits 2019 retail liquor license renewals?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none. Okay, next we have the 2019 entertainment license renewals, 1 through 14 as listed.
I
Chairman,
move
I'll
that we
make the mo-
approve
Go ahead.
the entertainment license for Bamboo House, Brothers Deli, Tono, Dockside, several from Hobbsbrook Management, which is Edgewater, Bolinos, Leaf and Ginger, Massimo, and 4 Point Sheridan, Wakefield.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Thank you. And third, just one, is 2019 automated device license renewals for Dockside Restaurant.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the 2019 automated device license renewal for the Dockside.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. And D is 2019 common victualler license renewals. It's as listed 1 through 20.
I move we approve all of the common victual licenses, many of which we've already talked about, in addition to Pizza, Brothers Deli, Diamond Fortune, Greenwood House of Pizza, Lisa's Family Pizzeria, My Brother's Place, and Wakefield House of Pizza.
Right, and again, there's no
None of
issues with any of these license renewals,
Right.
so.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. Okay. Next, we have E is the 2019 lodging house renewal for Mira LLC, which is 4 Point Sheraton Wakefield.
I move that we accept the lodging house renewal for 4 Point Sheridan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none. F is 2019 Class 2 license renewals, all state truck sales.
I move that we approve the 2019 Class 2 license renewal for all state truck sales.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none? Okay, great, thank you. Approval of minutes, regular board minutes, possible vote to approve the November 26, 2018 regular board minutes.
I move that we vote to approve the November 26th regular board meeting minutes, as well as the December 4th joint meeting minutes that we had with school committee.
Second.
All- All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
Aye.
Hearing none, 7-0. Thank you, Ann. Okay, warrant review and signing, warrant number 15 dated October 9, 2018 through warrant number 20 dated November 13, 2018 regarding town affairs were reviewed and signed by Julie. Any comments down there, Julie? Anything?
No, really, pretty standard.
Standard? Okay. We're gonna have to approve that, too. That doesn't need a vote. Okay, thank you very much, Julie. Okay, so Matters not anticipated by the chairperson within 48 hours of meeting. Ann?
One thing I want to bring up, and Maureen and I were both contacted by Judy Luciano with regard to the proclamation. She noted, and I don't know that, I certainly didn't notice, because I was focused on other issues, that age was left off of those that we should not discriminate against, and we should proclaim that. I explained to Judy that I think the genesis of the proclamation was based on all the anti-Semitic and racial incidents that were happening nationally and locally, and that's really where gender identity, that's where it came from. That we were not, it certainly wasn't done intentionally. So I just, you know, whether we revisit the proclamation or we just make it very clear that of course that we support strong language that, and we would protect any discrimination that was occurring based on age in our town, especially because we are an age-friendly town, as voted on.
Okay.
Good luck,
Excellent.
and good luck to all the winter sports starting. I have a player this year, which I haven't had before, so I'm really
Excellent.
focused in. First hockey games tomorrow night, so good luck to them.
Excellent. Paul?
Mr. Chair, thank you.
We'll bounce around tonight.
I'm
some
going,
different-
I can see that you're doing that, sir. Thank you.
Excellent point.
I want to thank everyone. I want to thank especially the town agencies that were involved in supporting the recent holiday stroll. I would like to at least call out to a few of them. There was Dennis Fazio and his crew. There was Joe Gaudreau and his crew. Ralph Brown and his crew. And then everyone in the town hall that were involved in it, police, fire, and the DPW. They did an outstanding job and, once again, accommodating the event. So, kudos to, of course, our town body. Mr. Mayo brought up a couple of points in the, presentation earlier that, and he stressed the issue. Going forward, I will be moving in a more affirmative direction regarding drainage. And when and if something should be developed, will be presenting it to this board for support in trying to alleviate a long-standing condition that's been in this town for over 20 years that I know of. I know, but I'm not going to go back to the 60s. So that would be one issue. And as Ed brought up, and Steve again, we do need to really start looking at what the development is happening in the town. Steve and I went through a large list of current developments going forward, and most of them are residential, and few of them have the mixed-use piece into it. I think this board should actively pursue that matter when any development is done in the 4 districts which the special permit allows them to be in. We have to be due diligent into making our suggestions brought forward that we are looking for mixed use in those areas and not to eliminate the commercial side of the piece and have more of, and not have all residential in place. That's going to hurt us down the road, ultimately. That's been a long-standing thing from my days on the planning board, where that was one of our biggest fears. You can't do a residential shift when there is no commercial in the town. So it would impact everyone if that happened. Then on to a more pleasant note. We are not meeting now again until January 14th, is that correct?
Yes, correct.
So to those who are running for re-election next year, papers can be pulled on January 2nd. And for Peter, Tony, and Ann, I want to let you know now that if you do pull papers, you have my full support.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Thank you, Paul.
I just want you, all three, to be aware that my standing rule of endorsing and supporting the incumbents will remain in force. So the 3 of you have my full support, and that is my Christmas present to the 3 of you.
I still prefer cash.
Everyone prefers cash. And don't forget, this body is invited to the compound on Saturday, so look forward to seeing all of you. And that's it, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Paul. The holiday stroll was excellent, by the way. The 10th year was It gets better every year. It was fabulous. The weather was extraordinary, too. I know you want to snow, but it was,
No,
it
that's
was
just
really good.
one last thing. Seeing that we're not going into, we won't meet until, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
Okay, thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
Excellent. Let's see. Julie?
Thank you. All great holiday stroll. I've really been amazed by all the holiday activities in Wakefield, just being more involved this year, and what a great community. I guess the only thing I have, because we're not meeting until mid-January, is there's a new residential and small commercial solar program that's gonna be coming through the Light Department. It's still in the process of being finally approved by the Department of Energy Resources, but there's going to be a seminar on it at the library on January 27th. It's similar to something that a community group put together last January, but there'll be more details about how to do residential solar. Other than that, just happy holidays, everybody. It's been a pleasure working with you these past few months.
Thanks, Julie. And that was the library, right?
That's at the
27th.
library.
Okay.
Yeah, there'll be
Thanks
more
very much.
information around, but I wanted to get
Okay.
it to people's agendas.
Yeah, dates are good. Excellent. Ed?
Thank you. I've got a few things. First, I want to congratulate Paul and everyone who worked on the holiday stroll and shop, and I think that's an important element to it, the shop piece. This year, the 10th anniversary, it was very local. It felt very local. It felt very Wakefield, and that was great. And I know there was a real emphasis on that, and I think all the shopkeepers and all the businesses and services across town did appreciate that, and it was a great turnout too. So congratulations to everyone involved with that. I didn't get a chance last time, but I did want to thank WCAT for a phenomenal job at the joint meeting at the Walton. They had been there since 2 o'clock that afternoon setting up, and I think we all as a town take for granted that WCAT is just always there and able to just produce incredible programming on the fly. And in this case, it was in a satellite studio in a school gymnasium. So thank you to WCAT for all that they always do on that front. Also wanted to mention, Steve, I think it was a great collaboration we had tonight with Reading as far as our tax assessor. Doing more of that is so important, and I know that off on the horizon, we've talked about the DPW garage, and to the extent that that continues to be on the radar, especially for our state delegation, and recognizing the importance of trying to move that along. It's a win-win for our community and for Reading. And most importantly, it's a win for Wakefield. So I think that that's something, that if we make that a priority for the upcoming year, it's really significant. And finally, I want to remind everyone that this Friday, the 14th, is the deadline for applying for the Public Safety Reassessment Committee. There are several community members at large positions available. I hope everyone applies. Different, unique perspectives, new voices, new faces are certainly welcomed, and it's a simple process. Resume and cover letter, letter of interest sent along to Sherry, and all the information is on our website. And with that, I'll just wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, and I will see you next year. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Ed. Maureen?
Sure. So a couple of things. One, I was thinking as we were renewing all the licensing of the establishments that early this year we had some issues with some of the establishments, and I just want to recognize that those businesses haven't come back ahead of us. So they've actually been following the law and been great members of our community, and I just wanted to recognize that. I think sometimes we bring people in here and we never talk about it again. So for all those businesses who came in earlier in the year, we haven't been hearing about any problems, and so thank you. And it is being the holiday season, just to remind everyone to be safe as you are celebrating. Make that important. The other update I wanted to give was we had a really successful Wakefield 101 this weekend at the library. Invitations went out to over 70 new folks who have moved to Wakefield in the last 6 months. We had department heads there, and we had a lot of the nonprofits. It was packed. Everyone left with smiles on their faces. So thank you to everyone that helped out make that day really successful. It's become a every 6-month tradition now. So looking forward to it. And to echo what everyone said, Happy New Year, Happy Holidays, till our next meeting.
Thanks, Maureen. Tony?
First of all, I had a great event yesterday. I just want to say thanks to the Rizzuto family for sponsoring that Harts Hill banquet yesterday. A great event attended by several of our council members, including, Maureen, Julie, Peter, and myself. hats off to you, Paul, for you and your group and the town for a tremendous holiday stroll. Mother Nature cooperated with us this year, and it was really great. You could not get into a restaurant after about 5 o'clock, so we'll look forward to some good local receipts with that. Steve, tremendous on this, but it's important for people to understand why we have that free cash, we have those reserves. It just helps us with our bond rating, and it's a self-feeding prophecy. It just keeps our rates down, so we are allowed to just borrow at the lowest possible rates out there. And, just happy holidays to everybody. Be safe out there, and, be good to your neighbors.
Thanks, Tony. Tom?
Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everybody. And Mr. Chairman, I think you anticipated everything.
Wow. That's great. Steve?
I'm good, Mr. Chairman.
You're good, too. Okay. Just a quick couple of comments. I wanted to mention FYI, so the Wreaths Across America at Forest Glade Cemetery at 12 noon on Saturday. They'll be placing wreaths at the veterans' graves, just an FYI. If you can make it, great. It's a good event, very important. I want to thank, this is our last meeting, I want to thank the town administrator for doing an excellent job this year, as well as his administrative heads, employees. The town is in great shape. It's not been any better as far as we can go back, maybe 10, 15, 20 years. I don't know how long it's been in this kind of shape. So the shape is fabulous, very strong, and want to continue that effort going forward. Also, the other town council, Tom, I want to thank you for all your efforts this year, from town meeting to our first meeting. You've been a great asset for the town. Also, our town council, thank you very much for making this year a very good year. And WCAT, thank you again for being everywhere we are, and sometimes when we're not. Excuse me. But, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to everyone in Wakefield, and we'll see you next year.
I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none? Thank you very much.
That was close.
Good night.
Yeah.
It was good.
Yes.
We'll give it to you.
It was important.